Good afternoon, everyone. We continue with the first day of the Peru Venture Capital Conference focused on investors. Today, I'm in the panel, The Development Perspective of VC Investments. We're joined by Aimee Yamamura from COFIDE and Stevon Darling from the International Finance Corporation, the IFC. My name is Mosi Mosquera, and I will be in charge of moderating this panel. So welcome, everyone, Aimee and Stevon, and thank you very much for joining us today. It is a pleasure for us that you can be part of the Peru Venture Capital Conference this year. Before starting the conversation, I would like to introduce myself, and then please, I would like you, Aimee and Stevon, to give a brief introduction of yourselves. Well, my name is Mosi Mosquera. I'm with the IDB Lab, the innovation laboratory of the Inter-American Development Bank Group, as investment officer. As IDB Lab, we promote development through the private sector by identifying, supporting, testing, and piloting new solutions to development challenges and seeking to create opportunities for the poor and vulnerable populations in Latin America and the Caribbean. We do that through financing instruments, connections to our regional networks, and creating and sharing knowledge. We are investing in more than 40 VC funds across the region, and recently increasing our portfolio of direct investments in innovative companies with impacting solutions. So please introduce yourself, what you do, and especially what are you and your organizations doing for the VC industry. Please, Aimee.
So good afternoon, Mosi, Stevon, and everybody, and thank you very much to pick up for the invitation. My name is Aimee Yamamura. I'm the Chief Development and Innovation Officer in COFIDE, Peru's public development bank, and our purpose is to promote sustainable social development in the country, and we do so through providing financial access to SMEs. We also facilitate financial inclusion in both rural and urban areas of the country. We try to foster also the improvement of productivity and competitiveness of our SMEs. And we support the development of strategic sectors in the country and the economy, such as public infrastructure and microfinance. And more specifically, in terms of venture capital, in 2019, the Peruvian government issued the National Plan of Productivity and Competitiveness, which included an objective in relation to the promotion of local and international financial mechanisms, and through, among other mechanisms, the creation of a venture capital fund. So in January last year, the Capital Fund for Innovative Entrepreneurship was created. And this is basically a fund of funds. And this is one mechanism that we are in a way that we are supporting the VC ecosystem right now. And we also have the SMEs Entrepreneur Fund, which is a fund that was also created by the Peruvian government to provide non-refundable resources to startups in the early stages, and also to support and help the entities that support the ecosystem here in Peru as incubators and accelerators. So that's basically the two ways in which currently COFIDE is supporting the development of the VC ecosystem in Peru.
Thank you very much, Aimee. Please, Stevon.
Hi, good afternoon. Great to be here as well to share a little bit about what we do at the International Finance Corporation as it relates to the venture capital industry. In terms of my background, I am with the venture capital team where I lead our efforts in Latin America, investing both directly in startups as well as in venture capital funds. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the International Finance Corporation, which is also known as the IFC, we are the private investing arm of the World Bank Group. And so we try to bring to life the twin goals of the World Bank Group, which is alleviating poverty and ensuring there's more equality in the world through investing in private companies in emerging markets. For us, we think about venture investing both on the fund side as well as directly in startups. It's a way for us to be able to propel the use of technology to ensure the acceleration of economic development. In Latin America, we have invested in more than 15 companies, both on the fintech side as well as the non-fintech side. which includes investments in logistics and building, B2B SaaS. We also look at agriculture, technology, health tech, as well as ed tech. And then when you think about the work that we have done in Latin America for VC funds, it really encompasses investing in some of the best-in-class fund managers, which include Valor in Brazil, Monashees, Mountain Nazca in Mexico, and XTP in Argentina, which has more of a regional focus. And we continue to look to find more interesting opportunities on both sides of where we focus.
Thank you, Esteban. So excellent. Now we start with the panel. Let's start getting to know more about what your organizations are doing in the VC industry. You already started to talk about that, and maybe talk a little more about perspectives later. So, Aimee, you mentioned the Capital Fund for Innovative Entrepreneurship. Could you tell us a little more about the initiative? What do you see as the impact this initiative generates for the development of the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the Peruvian economy?
Yes, of course. Must allow me to talk a little bit more about this Capital Fund for Innovative Entrepreneurships. And as I said, this was a fund created in January last year, and it is the first public support program created to reduce the financing gap that startups in the Peruvian market are facing. And this financing gap was actually estimated by PECAP to be around $145 million by 2022. So the way we designed the fund is to promote venture capital industry and selecting the best local fund managers and acting as an anchor investor in their funds and providing the capital they need to leverage private investment. Also, we are seeking to attract regional funds whose investment thesis consider investing in the Pacific region. That is mainly Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile, and more specifically in startups that are Peruvian or having operations in the Peruvian market. And we're also looking for funds that we will like to relate with local funds, creating knowledge spillovers. That is also very important for us. And the fund aims to boost the startup local ecosystem, helping the Peruvian ventures to scale among most specifically in the Pacific Alliance region, as well as promote a soft landing for foreign startups at the local market as well. And this is a fund that's been anchored by the Ministry of Production here in Peru and holds assets under management for about $20 million. That's the first commitment that we have, and hopefully we'll like to close this year with $10 million more in order to invest and throughout this and the following years. And in terms of the aims that we have and the goals that we have for this fund of funds is the creation of new local funds aligned with best practices in the industry. We are also looking to promote regional funds investing in local startups and sharing the deals with local funds. And what we will also like to see is that in the VC funds that we invest, we hope that they are able to leverage private and institutional investments and to channel as well throughout this VC financing to more than 50 startups in Peru with a great scaling and consolidation potential. So for us, it is a great opportunity to promote through this fund the promotion of innovation and entrepreneurship in the country. And we also consider that, considering previous estimates, that with this, by closing this financing gap, we'll be able to get to the financial access that these startups require, and hopefully contribute to generate around $1 billion in economic activity for the following years in the country.
Great, thank you, Aimee. Just to be clear about the opportunity, is this fund available for local funds only, or also regional funds that are not based in Peru?
Yes, it's for both. Actually, it's for local funds as well as regional funds. Like I said, we are going to focus mainly in the Pacific Alliance region. We think that there's a very important opportunity for our funds to scale within the region. So yes, this is available for any international and regional funds as well. Just that we will require them to invest in or have to be investing or to have plans to invest in startups that will have operations in the Peruvian market.
Okay, that's great news. And what are the next steps about the implementation of the funds? Are you already seeking for investments, or please tell us?
Yes, so it's actually very interesting because finally next June, this fund of funds will start officially operating in the Peruvian market. We've been actually had a lot of funds in both all Peruvian and also regionally, very interesting and approaching us. And we have also, this fund, which is anchored by the Ministry of Production, has two governing bodies. First one, which is the steering group, which has already been actively operating since the beginning of the year. And this steering group is composed of the Ministry of Economy and Finance, the Ministry of Production, and the National Productivity and Competitiveness Council. And we also have the investment committee, which will start also operating in June when the fund is launched. And this investment committee will be responsible for the investment decisions. So from what we've seen right now, we have very high expectations in terms of the local and regional funds that we will have in order to have the opportunity to invest throughout the second semester of the year and through the next 2 or 3 years. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Aimee. Esteban, you mentioned something about the technical assistance for IFC investments. What's the role of this technical assistant? If you can tell us a little more about that, please.
Sure, of course. I think, when we think about investing at IFC, we have a number of different sectors, different verticals, and different stages of the life cycle of a business that we focus on. Recently, I would say about 12 to 18 months ago, IFC created a program called IFC Upstream, which really focuses on how to think about what will be the next areas of growth in emerging markets, which would be a bit immature for private capital today, and trying to think about what can IFC do to ensure that these various sectors will be able to get to the point where commercial capital would feel comfortable investing in these various sectors. And so what we try to do through Upstream is think about building up ecosystems from the ground up. A good example of that is here in Mexico, as well as many other parts of Latin America. We've realized that the centers of innovation really focuses on the capitals of these countries, either the financial capitals or the public capital. So, for example, when you look at Brazil, most of the venture activity really is in Sao Paulo. In Mexico, most of that is in Mexico City. In Peru, that's really centered around Lima. And for us, we really see the importance of technology to change the lives of people, one, through increasing their economic opportunities, but also ensuring that their standard of living is able to increase significantly. And so what we're trying to do right now when thinking about technical assistance is trying to figure out who are the different entrepreneurs, as well as the different entities who are focused on venture capital, and give them necessary tools to understand what it means to scale and launch a business. For us, we've really tried to center that around, one, thinking about how can we provide technical assistance to new entrepreneurs who want to get exposure to the space, and also secondly, thinking about how can we provide grant funding to certain types of enterprises, as well as accelerators, to ensure that we can prove the point that innovation can and truly happen anywhere in the world. I think also a part of this is a program that we potentially can talk about later, which is called IFC Startup Catalyst, which is specifically focused on early stage accelerators and funds, mainly those who are first-time fund managers who may not have a long track record in investing in this asset class, but may have a lot of potential, and there may potentially be a way for IFC to think about the one commercial, but also developmental impact that can be had through an investment.
Great, Stefan. And I understand Catalyst program is directly to work with the funds, and the other was the upgrading.
The
Upstream,
upstream,
right?
the upstream,
The
correct.
upstream, yeah. Do you work that upstream as a technical assistant through other institutions in the ecosystem, or do you do it directly with the companies, the startups, the entrepreneurs, or the accelerators?
So we do it directly with the companies or accelerators. I think it's a program that's very flexible, and the guiding principle for us is trying to figure out how can IFC provide support, whether that's strategic advice, whether that's potentially non-commercial capital, to ensure that we can do what we can do to prove that investing in this specific asset class makes sense and that a strong return of capital can be ensued later on. There are many different ways that we have done this in emerging markets in the past. Part of this has been, providing grant financing to early stage companies, which may be in the Series A stage to test out a new solution. Part of it may be providing consulting advice to that startup as well. Another part of it may be connecting them with different experts that we have internally to ensure that they can have an expert who they can find more information to develop business. So it's really flexible in approach, and I think we have the option to use it to combat any part of the ecosystem that we think has a significant level of deficit.
And it's like you going to reach those companies in accelerator, or there is a program where people, institutions, companies have to apply?
No, so there's no application program. It's all internal programming where we would have previously identified companies through the work that we are doing in our mainstream VC investing. And if we believe that they may be too early stage for an IFC investment, but they have a strong potential to make a very positive impact, but just need to have specific supports to get to the point of an IFC investment, then we think about crafting a specific upstream project with them. The same thing when we think about Startup Catalyst, which specifically focus on providing funding to accelerators as well as seed funds, most of them who are first-time fund managers raising less than $50 million. There's no application program, but we have folks who are fully dedicated to trying to source those opportunities. And we oftentimes work very closely with other development institutions as well as other institutional investors to figure out which are the next up-and-coming funds that are in their pipeline to see if we can collaborate in those efforts as well.
Great. So there's a lot of things to ask about these programs that you both have, but let's go a little bit to the plans for the next. And let me start this time or continue with Stefan. I know about the work that IFC and you have been doing to promote economic development, especially in developing markets. So what is your approach in supporting these investments to reach the development, and what are the next opportunities or your next plans to continue supporting opportunities in LAC?
The way that we think about Latin America is, one, we need to ensure that we are investing in both existing best-in-class fund managers as well as new fund managers to ensure that we can have a full cycle of funding that can be provided through local investors on the ground. And I think that's mainly because we see year after year, whenever there's some type of economic downturn in Latin America or some other emerging market, the first type of capital that quickly dries up would be international money. And so we need to ensure that there is a large pool of local funds who can be able to support their local economies now and in the future. I think when we think about investing directly in startups, it's trying to figure out how can IFC's direct investment potentially complement what funds are doing in the region. One area where we see a continued significant impact is around growth equity. So when companies are raising their Series B and their Series C rounds rounds of investments. And so at IFC, we think that our direct investment capacity would be better suited looking for opportunities that would fit, Series B or Series C. And then when we try to allocate capital to funds, that's really on the seed as well as the Series A stage. For us, when we look to invest in venture funds, we're typically investing anywhere from 10 to $20 million in funds that have at least around $100 million of total commitments. And then when we think about the seed funds and accelerators, the amount is much smaller because the total commitments would be smaller. But there we can invest anywhere from $3 to $5 million. On the direct side, the minimum size check for us would really be around $5 million in rounds that would be north of 10. In terms of sectors for us and where we think we're going to continue our focus area in the future, I think on the direct side, we're seeing because of COVID a significant acceleration of digital transformation. And so I think for us, we want to get significant exposure to various B2B SaaS plays as well as software. We're seeing a lot of companies developing around B2B marketplaces, whether it's to increase the level of professionalization for mom and pop shop convenience stores, restaurants, hotels. We're also seeing an increased need for last mile logistics to help support the increase of activity in the e-commerce sector. And then obviously, I think health tech and ed tech will continue to be important for us because we see a very strong developmental impact that can be resulted from investment in those sectors.
Great, yeah, very relevant everything that you are saying, and I would like to highlight also the importance of investing not only in the venture funds that are already in the market doing a good job, but taking the risk to support development of the ecosystem by investing in this new VC funds and first-time managers, definitely. So, what are your plans as COFIDE for supporting the ecosystem besides the fund of funds?
Yes, so we are actually we're starting with the fund of funds. As you said, it's just recently, right, that COFIDE has started supporting the VC ecosystem in 2019. But then yes, we have a lot of several plans for supporting the industry. And well, the first in terms of this fund of funds is to continue implementing our communication strategy, which actually is aimed to raise public awareness in our market on the financing gap of the venture capital ecosystem, and in close collaboration with the other public institutions. We're also looking to fix the exchange and continue actually with the exchanging best practices with our counterparts in the other countries within the Pacific Alliance region, and looking for investment opportunities and contact networks between the different actors within the ecosystem, and prioritizing, like I said, these 4 countries, and continue also, which is very important, I think, Steven, and you also mentioned it, is continue the capacity building program that we have already started with the support of the Swiss Economic Cooperation and Development Agency. We are with this program is aimed to support the first-time managers here in Peru and the angel investors, and we'll continue with this capacity building program throughout this year and next year, because we think it's important not only to be able to close this financing gap, but also provide our fund managers, right, with the best industry practices that we can find not only locally but internationally, and also support the angel investors here in Peru. Also, we are promoting the public advocacy in terms of sustainable development. So through this fund of funds as well, we aim to promote and spread responsible investment. And in order to do so, we are conducting a study to define ESG indicators and a straightforward methodology that will help us measure these indicators in the years to come. And we're also working very strongly with the other public institutions here in Peru that support the VC industry, such as Proinnovate and Concitec, because we believe that there's still a lot to do in terms of science, technology, and innovation-based initiatives. And in that sense, in partnership with them, we are putting forward public policy initiatives to enhance research and development expenditure in the country and to foster technology-based ventures in various regions of the country. Because as Devon said, we find that it's mostly in Lima where we find this kind of entrepreneurships, but we would like to support also the rest of the regions that we believe have a lot of potential to develop this kind of entrepreneurships in Peru.
Great plans for the close future, Amy. You mentioned that one of the plans was continue having this lessons learned from other initiatives similar in the region, especially in the Pacific Alliance countries about the fund of funds. Can you share with us the main of some lessons learned related to fund of funds in other countries?
Yes, of course. I think one of the main lessons learned was to strongly, have a national strategy in terms of how we would like to support the VC ecosystem, and as such, that's why we have been working very closely since the creation of the Fund of Funds early last year with the other institutions that also support and are working to develop the local ecosystem with Proinnovate and Concitec, because we really believe we need to articulate with each other in order to have a successful and aligned support from the government to the private sector. So that's one lesson learned, and the other one is possibly in terms of the sustainable investment that we wish to promote. We believe that at first, because of the size of our VC market here in Peru and the industry itself, that we will help the industry promote this kind of investments through capacity building. We believe that we really need to invest our time and resources in order to build this capacity of our fund managers and promote this kind of responsible investment. So we are working there very closely with our counterparts in the different countries from the Pacific Alliance region, and trying to continue learning about their previous experience, right? Because they have several years probably before us trying to implement the kind of initiatives, and I think we can all we can promote value-added, public policies with having this interaction among us and learning with all the with the experiences, and as well not just them but also the multilateral banks are helping us very much in terms of these capacity buildings and learning from other countries' experience.
Thank you, Emma. I don't know, Stefan, if you want to add something to that? I think you wanted, but
No, I mean, I think for us, IFC's goal in terms of investing in the venture capital space is to eventually put ourselves out of business. I think we want to see an environment where the pockets of local capital, not just in Latin America, but throughout emerging markets, is deep enough really to fund the entire cycle of a company from ideation to exit. And so a lot of that work also is ensuring that we're continuing to find the best-in-class startups to prove to both local and international investors that there is an opportunity in a country like Peru. But then also ensuring that there is sufficient levels of regulation so that when there is time for an exit, whether it's a strategic M&A or whether it's an IPO, that opportunity can exist. And so that our investors can also see an opportunity for them to have a strong monetization event. Because I think that's going to create the virtuous cycle where more and more capital will come to countries and economies like Peru.
Definitely agree. That's the goal, not to be needed anymore. And that takes us to the next part of the question. Let's talk about a little more about the perspectives for the VC industry and the investments in the region. Please, this our question open for any of you who wants to respond or complement. So, where do you think should the VC target sectors and kind of companies invested? What kind of VC would you support, finance in terms or their priorities in sectors or kind of companies in the near and next futures? It could be taken into account the COVID break or not.
Yeah, I would say for us, there's definitely a strong need to find more institutional funds focused on the seed investment stage. I think that there is a significant level of high net worth individuals as well as family offices who early stage companies need to rely on in a market like Peru. I think that's great. However, I think what a lot of early stage founders really need is strong mentorship through folks who have the time to properly do portfolio management and you have a much more expansive view of what's happening in a specific sector to be able to provide true operational support depending on the life cycle of a company. So for us, one of our major wish is to see more institutional money coming into the seed stage. I think the second thing that we would like to see in Latin America would be more local funds focused on growth. I think that in certain larger markets in Latin America, such as Brazil, you're seeing early stage funds who have the opportunity to create these so-called opportunity funds to invest in Series B and Series C rounds of their existing portfolio or third-party companies. And I think that's great, but the amount of capital is still much lower than the demand. And so one way that we've seen that certain local markets have been able to compensate for that is various private equity funds have started to come downstream as well and invest in growth equity. I think the third thing that we would like to see is a bit more collaboration between founders in a cross-border sense. I think overall, when we think about Latin American opportunities, we see a lot of similarities with companies that have started in Southeast Asia, India, or China 5 or 10 years ago. And oftentimes when we look in our portfolio and we ask ourselves, what's the most efficient way for our Peruvian portfolio company or Latin American portfolio company to solve some of their solutions? It can be resolved really quickly if they connect with a counterpart in a similar sector in a much more mature market, because chances are the problem would be very similar, but would have been solved a few years in the past. And that can really help the efficiency in terms of getting to the core of several problems. And then I think the last thing for me is, obviously in Latin America, we're seeing a lot of developments in the financial technology space. And I think it's obvious why, when you think about in various markets where there's a significant level of under or unbanked populations. I think, however, when you see a lot of the fintech innovation that's happening in Latin America on the lending side, I think they're really focused on a certain part of the demographic, which already has some access to finance, but it's all about trying to ease it and make it more efficient. I think us at IC would like to see folks moving a little bit more down market to the true base of the pyramid and thinking about how do you provide integrated solutions to those who are completely left out of the financial services, because we know the importance of access to credit to truly improving the lives of folks who are in poverty in so many different markets.
Great. I don't know if you want to add to that, Aimee, or maybe Esteban have already talked about what he wants to see in terms of the venture capital funds, like more seed stage, more institutional, bigger series, that's in terms of the funds. What do you think? Do you see another thing about that, Amy, besides the company's side?
Yes, I think it's very interesting. Actually, what Steven was stating. I think that actually what we've seen in the premier market, we would still have to, because we have an industry that's still developing. I think we need to bring more financial access to the early stages, right, of startups, and that's what we're actually working for. Both with the from the public institutions, as we mentioned before, with the Concitec and Proinnovate, that are actually the institutions through which we can provide this access to finance in the early stages. And also, I think here in Peru, it's very important to continue supporting this. The entities that actually support this ecosystem, right? Working very closely with the and supporting with resources to providing resources to the incubators and accelerators. I think that will really prepare, the market in order to have all these other institutional funding coming to the country, both internationally, also, promoting this kind of investment and this new kind of asset class among other institutional investors, such as also family offices. I think that has been improving throughout these last years here in Peru. But the idea also of creating the funded funds from our perspective is to make this industry more dynamic, and especially I think being able to see what the potential is in the different regions of our country. I think that in terms of the sectors, initially, for example, in COFIDE, will not be focusing in any sector in specifically, because we believe that still the market needs to continue developing, and as such, we will focus in a more like geographic aspect, and try to, in that sense, work with the other institutions in Peru to see what are the sectors in each one of the regions that actually have potential, right? And support them and continue with the capacity building. For us, it is very important, not only providing the financing that they need, but also the capacity building for our fund managers. That's the key point, I think, for us for the following 2 years.
Thank you. I see it very important to talk about this development perspective, to have this vision of what's next in the VC industry, not only but from these institutions of second floor like IFC, COFIDE, IDB Lab, so we can collaborate with the ecosystem to go to this vision of a VC industry developed in the close and faraway future. So we can do the things that we have to do to finance technical assistance or what it's needed to go to that vision, right? And talking about that vision, I would like to ask you about the sectors. I know, Amy, you said you don't want to define some clear or unique sectors to invest, since the VC industry is just starting in the country. But if we think about the current situation of the world, not only the region, and the needs that has been emerged and clearly be seen as things that are needed in the region through the pandemic crisis, do you think the VC industry should also take into account these new needs or needs that now are be seen to start thinking about that? Or should they just keep funding companies if there is some impact or there is a business case there? Do you think do they have to rethink their strategy related to sectors or impact?
Yes, of course. I think initially, like I said, I'm just talking about the fund of funds. We will not be focusing on any specific sectors. However, I think that the economy, not just locally and regionally, as you said, but the international economy and the way it will develop in terms of the not post-COVID, maybe hopefully in the upcoming years, we will be able to see how the investments need probably to focus in certain sectors. So here in Peru, I think it makes a lot of sense to invest right in sectors such as ed tech, as health tech, and agriculture and ag tech, that we'll be looking at the market. I think that the most important, message that we would like to provide from Cofide is that we're always looking to the market, and are very, we really want to support the industry, and we'll be looking at how the dynamics change probably in the upcoming years. But yes, most I think we're not like I wanted to say is that we are not close to any specific sectors. It's just that from because we're just starting with this initiative, we will and also related to the other question that you asked in terms of how we were learning about the best practices in other countries in the region. That was also a suggestion, right? Trying to at first be open in our thesis to the sectors in terms of investment, and then and then with time, just see what are the sectors that have actually more potential in our case, that make more sense from the public point of view, that have more impact both socially and environmentally in our country.
Thank you, Amy. I pass the word to you, Esteban. Maybe with this change of question, what do you want to see the VC funds investing in? What would you like to see?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, I think more than sectors, I think that there needs to be a strong focus on what I'm going to refer to as the atypical founder. I think oftentimes the founders who have access to capital from the leading fund managers in Peru and other parts of Latin America are potentially those who speak fluent English, those who may have went to certain institutions, potentially those who may have studied abroad. And so I think when we really think about venture capital in other markets such as the US and Europe, we've seen it as an opportunity where many different types of people had the chance to innovate and get access to capital to bring about new technological changes that can help better society. I think unfortunately, if we continue to finance certain entrepreneurs who have a very similar background, then at the end of the day, we're going to miss out on a very significant level of innovation, which can be a result of a personal background that's being left out of the funding cycle. So I think for us, ensuring that venture capital and the access of capital in Latin America, in Peru, becomes as democratic as possible is something that we definitely want to see. And then I think on the sector side, I think in a market like Peru, because the venture ecosystem is still relatively nascent compared to places like Brazil, Mexico, or even Colombia, I think it can potentially be argued that we're still in either the first or second generation of innovation, where a lot of the models that we're seeing are solving problems that are very core. For example, a fintech business, which is mainly focused on just providing increased access to credit, or a logistics business that is focused on providing a marketplace for delivery of services. I think after time, once those first degree of sectors become saturated, then hopefully we'll be able to see a second or third wave of innovation where folks are developing various software to power various sectors. So thinking about back of office software to support SMEs so they can have a better opportunity to compete with large enterprises. But I think that only can happen once the first level of innovation in Peru has reached a certain level of saturation. And then entrepreneurs would be incentivized to then think about other ways that they can bring technological change to improve the market.
I agree with both of you, and that what you said, Stefan, take me to my next question, and is everything all right in the VC industry? What should change? And I wanted to leave it open to you, and please take it like that. But you were mentioning something about, if I understand, diversity, Stefan. And that's something that we are interested in changing. So is everything in venture capital industry? What should change? And I leave it to you. Oh.
No, definitely. I mean, I think the diversity point is one that is apparent both on the entrepreneur side as well as the fund manager side.
Absolutely.
When I think about my week, I probably speak to maybe 20, 25 startups on a weekly basis. And I think it's very rare when I come across a female entrepreneur in my weekly meetings. So I think there's definitely a lot of work to be done there. I think part of the way that we can get to promote more diversity in the venture ecosystem in Peru and other parts of Latin America is for us as institutional investors in funds, ensuring that we have strict mandates and we hold fund managers accountable. I think what we're doing at IFC is, we have a program that's specifically focused on gender investments called WeFi, Women in Financial Institutions, where we are matching capital for either companies that have a founder who is a woman, or they are focused on solving a problem that the female population faces, or where the board representation is mainly female. And we're also trying to support women-led fund managers as well, who are focused on the venture ecosystem. So I think part of that change definitely will have to come from us as institutional investors who are mandating the change. And I think we've seen this throughout history, and it's happening in the public markets, where a lot of the large financial institutions are demanding that what they are investing in have very strong social and economic practices. I think the second thing that needs to change is potentially more access to debt capital for early stage startups. I think there's a number of sectors which have huge working capital issues, and getting access to debt is potentially a better way to solve those problems versus being diluted economically through more equity. So I think that's a second area that needs to develop in Peru and other parts of Latin America. And then I think the third thing potentially is we need to ensure that, as I said earlier, that innovation can happen outside of the capital, such as Lima, to ensure that we're truly taking advantage of the power that technology has to create economic impact.
Thank you, Stefan. Amy, you wanted to add something. Is everything right with the VC industry?
Well, I think, yeah, we've improved, especially here in Peru, very much these last years. But yeah, certainly there's a lot still to do, and we have a lot great challenges I think that we are facing. In terms of diversity, I think that in Cofide we would really like to see more women entrepreneurs and women fund managers, actively participating in the industry. And as I said before, we also think that there's a lot of potential and challenges in Peru. We have a very diverse country, And as such, we believe that there's a really important potential for other different kinds of entrepreneurships to develop within the different regions of our country. So as such, we are really trying to include and include that, right, in this the formulation of this fund of funds. I think that we are really working hard. So hopefully in the month to come, we will be able to share with you what are the way that we are trying to include this promotion of diversity within the startups that we are looking to have within the pipelines of the funds that we will be invested in. So yes, women, yes, and the regions, and development of regions is one of the most important focus for us at this time, being a public development bank.
As funding the funds, Amy, are you requiring or promoting in some way the existence of women or racial diversity in the teams of the funds during the process of due diligence or applying to the fund?
Yes, so we are still, well, the like I said before, in June, the fund of funds will be formally launched. However, we've been approached by several funds, both locally and regionally, and we've been very clear with them in terms of our expectations, and that we hope to see diversity in the funds management team. I think that's a very important thing for us in order to have the opportunity to really invest in funds that we believe that will have a diversity perspective.
Great. Just to let you know that we hope also in IDB Lab to have the first diversity fund supported this year. So we hope that happen. It's in terms of gender and racial diversity. So we hope to have that this year. We keep you posted. And let me ask one more thing about diversity, and maybe we can go to the final question for you. What actions, concrete action, do you think entities as IFC, COFI, the IDB Lab, and also the funds can take to increase diversity and opportunities? Especially, I'm always asking about the sourcing. Both sides, the sourcing, how do you get these diverse founders, but also the diversity in the teams of the funds? So what do you see as two actions, very concrete, to promote this diversity in our ecosystems and VC industry?
Yeah, I would say from my side, one point is having internal guideposts and internal incentives to ensure that we as investment professionals are doing everything that we can do to ensure that we're investing in diverse entrepreneurs and diverse fund managers. I think at IFC, every year we are measured by one, the financial performance of the opportunities we invest in, but also the level of developmental impact. And for all of our investments, we think about development impact also through the lens of diversity. And then I think the second thing that we can do is ensure that we show other commercial fund investors the economic importance of investing in diverse partners. About a year ago, IFC commissioned a study where they looked globally at all the different fund managers and found that those that were more diverse definitely had a higher economic return. And so I think by showing fund managers the importance and how this can result into their bottom line, I think you can naturally have more and more people buying into the need to have more diverse founders in their portfolio.
Great, Amy.
Yes. So yes, in our case, like I said, more specifically in the fund of funds, in terms of the due diligence that we'll be doing for the funds, said we'll include these diverse indicators, which we will share with the funds at that time. And I think in our case, we are really trying to promote diversity within not only within the funds but also in the within the entrepreneurs by having them have the chance to have these capacity building programs. We have part of these capacity building programs because, as Steven said, sometimes and mostly in our country, the English, for example, no, in terms of knowing the language and being able to make these to search to look for capital, it's something that it's a skill that you can help develop. The especially women, we believe that we can help in that, and also trying to really support and providing them the information, right? Indeed, I think that here in COFIDE we have a center to support the SMEs, and that's the way where we have been providing innovation workshops and a lot of information for the entrepreneurs, because we believe that that's a way that we can start having providing support for them to develop their ideas and see where they can find the source of financing, and see also how we can prepare them to be investment ready, right? So that's also a very important thing for us to support the entrepreneurs in order to have their startups ready when the institutional funds approach them, and I think that's a very important demand that we find in terms of the entrepreneurs that approach COFIDE for support.
Thank you, Amy. And I'd like to make this last question. I know it's related to a lot of things that we have been talking about today, but in 10 years, where do you think will be the VC industry, or where should it be? So we can say that the VC industry, the VC funds, and the VC industry is successful. How do you see it? Esteban, please go ahead.
I think from my standpoint, when I think about the Peruvian VC ecosystem today, it's incredibly nascent compared to what we see in Brazil and what we see in Mexico. So I think what I would like to see in the next 5 to 10 years is definitely a much more robust market in terms of local venture capital. I think the second thing that I would like to see, which connects to some of the points that we mentioned earlier, is more innovation happening outside of Lima in other cities in the country, but also a diversity in terms of the types of sectors, which is being of a focus for investments. I think another important thing that is needed if we want to have a vibrant VC ecosystem in Peru is alternative forms of financing for early stage entrepreneurs, which includes one, potentially media rights for equity deals. It includes venture debt in investments, and then I think that the third thing is seeing a robust local public market, so that when companies reach the scale where it's necessary to have some type of monetization event, you can look to the local Peruvian stock exchange for early stage investors to have a return of capital, but also so that entrepreneurs can have a reward for what they've been doing in the previous years.
Great, Esteban. So, what do you see as the success VC industry in 10 years or 5?
Okay, so yes, I would think I'd really like to see more having new local funds created and really robust, and also hopefully having impact investment funds here in Peru. I think that's something that would be very important to see as the market develops, right? And I think and also the participation, I think, of more family offices. I think we already have a couple of them quite participating actively in the industry, but hopefully as for the years to come, we will have more institutional, yes, investors and corporate funding coming from also the family offices, as has happened in other countries in the region. I think we have the potential, and I think it's just being able to, yes, to learn. I think that's why I want to come back to the capacity building, because I think it's important for them to learn also about this new asset class and taking more risks in their investments.
Thank you very much, Jaime, too. And would like to add, or maybe mix what you have already said, that we want to see a more inclusive ecosystem, including the founder side and the fund side, geographically out of Lima, in terms of gender, in terms of race, in terms of background. I think inclusion is something that we take a benefit for all. And I don't have we have the time. It's over, and I would like to thank you very much, Jaime and Esteban, for being here with us today. Thank you also to our audience, and back to Gustavo. Thank you. Bye.